Well, let's go to those Newspoll findings, more dire figures, of course, for the Albanese Labor government. On primary vote terms, the coalition's up 2 points to 40. Labor sits 7 points behind on 33. If you look at the trend, the coalition's remained above Labor with that gap widening since June. In two-party preferred terms, it's steady, 51-49 for the second month. But yet again, look at the trend. It's a stunning reversal of Labor's popularity since the start of the year. Finally, looking at the net satisfaction ratings for each leader, Peter Dutton sits at -11. He's now besting the Prime Minister for the first time. Prime Minister's here on -15. PM's lost significant ground since May, putting Peter Dutton in his best position yet. Even more startling for Labor is that the leader has had diminishing support since the election. Look at those numbers there from one top corner of the graph, plotted right down to cellar-dweller territory. For more, let's bring in the national editor for The Australian, Dennis Shanahan. Well, there's a lot there to get through, Dennis, but I can't see much there that's good for the government. Can you?
No, look, the Newspoll is unarguably bad for Labor. It is bad in the individual figures, but it's worse in the trends. And it's not just Newspoll. We've seen other polls, Freshwater initially showing an advantage to the coalition in two-party preferred. What we're now seeing is an increase for the coalition in primary beyond 40% or at 40%. Now, it is always said the coalition cannot win without a primary vote with a 4 in front of it. What's less said is that it really can't win without a 3 after the 4. So Peter Dutton and the coalition are on the right track. They are psychologically moving towards an area which we wouldn't have contemplated 2.5 years ago. That the fact that Anthony Albanese is looking seriously at losing majority and perhaps even turning to a Dutton majority coalition government. These are unheard of thoughts 2 years ago. It is now possible. Not saying it's going to happen. Peter Dutton still has a huge area to make up. But the other significant figures here are that Peter Dutton is now closing. Yes, he's less negative than Anthony Albanese, but that is crucial for a leader of the opposition. If a leader of the opposition ever moves in front of a Prime Minister in Newspoll, as far as preferred Prime Minister, well, it's all over Red Rover. But the second best for a leader of the opposition is to improve in that satisfaction rating, and there have been big falls for Prime Ministers previously in Newspoll on satisfaction, which have presaged a fall of the leader and a loss of the government. So I think this Newspoll today is very important. It doesn't mean Labor is going to lose. It doesn't even mean Labor is going to go into minority, but it changes the equation.
Right about now, this close to an election that's set for May, you've got this debate that goes inside the incumbent party, particularly when you're getting results like that. More effort, more giveaways, more political attack on your opponent will turn this around. We just need more time. And then there's an opposing argument that says, read the trend. Don't mistake the trend. We're on a deteriorating wicket here. We need to go sooner rather than later before we cannot claw any of this back. Too much momentum's going to the other side. It's one of the reasons I think they're going to go to a March election, perhaps call it in February, even January. How do you read this, Dennis?
Well, look, I think that Anthony Albanese still wants to go as long as he can. The reality is it going to get much worse for Labor? Let's face it, they have been at the primary vote, they have been since the last election, a bit below, a bit the same, within the margin of error. They've basically been the same. The Prime Minister's standing is falling, yes, and Peter Dutton's is getting better. But the Prime Minister now has what he sees as an electoral plan to have a big rally like he had the Sunday before last in Adelaide, announce a big thing. That'll be done in December. He'll do another one in January. And I don't think he's going to call an election on Australia Day weekend for an early March. I think there's too much of a problem. Roger Cook, the West Australian Premier, is already looking at this. Too much of a problem to have a March 8 election on the same day, that is a federal election on the same day as the West Australian election. Yes, it's possible, but it's messy. I still think the Prime Minister will go with a March budget and a May election because simply it can't get worse. And after all, if it is getting worse, Anthony Albanese wants to remain as Prime Minister as long as he can. And who knows what's around the corner. So I think we will not see an election till May. And I think that the Prime Minister is going to hang in there. Of course, there could be some humongous thing happen. But a Donald Trump victory in America is not one of those things that is going to drive Anthony Albanese to an early election, despite all the misguided Labor approach to try and pick up on the failed Kamala Harris program, whether it's abortion or whatever. I think that we will still see a May election next year.